Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of Big Sound Small Town, the podcast that spotlights the talented and diverse musicians in small towns and communities. This season we're branching out to include the community of people who make it possible for musicians to be able to perform their music, the producers, the recording engineers, the venue owners, and many others, and as always, the small town musicians. Remember, small town doesn't mean small talent. Hear their stories. I met Dan at his teaching studio in Boiling Springs, North Carolina, at the end of July 2019. He was very forthcoming. He was very straightforward, easy guy to talk to. I really enjoyed the time. And of course, his stories are great. Listen to him. I think you'll enjoy him. Today on Big Sound Small Town, I am with Cleveland County legend, Mr. Dan X Padgett. He's a multi-instrumentalist, and he is part of the beginning history of Cleveland County music. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, let's start this with, when did you decide you was going to be a musician?
Well, I lived on a farm. We had two tenant houses, and one of the tenant houses had a young boy that played guitar. I was about 9 years old, and he played Wildwood Flower. He had a little Stella guitar, which was,
I know,
you know, at the time, but he played Wildwood Flower, and I wanted to play Wildwood Flower. He was picking with a tooth comb.
Oh,
He
yeah.
didn't even have a guitar pick.
Right.
And he sat down there in the yard and showed me how to play Wildwood Flower. And then, not too long after that, I saw a banjo in the show window at the pawn shop up at Forest City, and it was a K.
Yeah.
And I had a beautiful, I traded up for a beautiful striped K guitar, and I traded that guitar in $65 for that banjo.
Oh, okay.
Really got cheated, you know.
Yeah.
But I started, you know, trying to play it. Didn't know anybody, never heard tell of Earl Scruggs or anybody.
Right.
I don't know why I wanted it, unless in the school band I played clarinet, and they had an old banjo in the music room in a big old wardrobe like thing.
Right.
And I would get it out, and it had 2 or 3 strings missing. I would play with it. I think that's some of my early influences. Well, of course, my dad wanted to be a banjo player, and during the Depression, so he had a quartet.
So you grew up with music already in your life as somebody that could play?
Every Wednesday night after prayer meeting, we went to the practice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then they'd go out and play?
They played on the radio,
Oh, yeah.
WBBO, I believe 1947, on the program. They made some records.
They play, what is that, gospel music? Now?
Gospel quartet.
Yeah, gospel quartet.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good place to start, really. That kind of lays the foundation for just about anything you want to do.
My dad knew a lot of musicians, and he'd take me around to live radio shows. There wasn't any television then, and introduced me to the people. And I remember one time we were WSPA Spartanburg radio, and the big light that says on the air, my dad said, now, when that light comes on, you be quiet, because we're on the air.
Right.
And I was a little boy, you know, I look up at that light and halfway scared, you know.
Yeah. So you got that banjo. So what did you just start making up stuff to play?
Yes, yes, I did. First song wasn't. It was more or less a strumming song.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then I began to pick with a thumb and one index finger, like most everybody does start with.
Yeah.
And then in 1954, I learned to play Flint Hill Special.
Okay.
I sat down with a 33, no, it's 78, I believe, and slowed it to 33 and a third, and tuned my banjo way down, and learned to play. And we were some of the first to have the D-tuners.
Oh, yeah.
Tiny Davis, Hubert Davis had them.
Davis, yeah.
He, as far as I know, he never worked but about a week or two in his whole life. He worked at Lily Mill long enough to get the machine shop to make him a set of D-tuners. And then he was gone.
I say, that's pretty funny there.
Went to Florida for a career, and the IRS got after him. He went to Nashville till he died. Had the Bluegrass Inn.
Had the Bluegrass Inn, yeah.
Just off of Broadway there. But these D-tuners here are some that Earl Scruggs helped me make, design, and they work better than anything. They'll be here
for
years and years.
Oh yeah, those are fine drop D tuners.
He gave me the specifications, says cut the stem down shorter, and I was supposed to have cut that in half right there, but never did get done. But they're chrome, stainless steel chrome.
That's pretty cool. I bet that was way ahead of the time with the banjo.
Well, Earl's is in the museum, and I got mine right beside his. It's very crude. It's not like this. It's like the first ones were.
Right.
And Hubert had those early. He was on 78 RPM records with the D-tuners in the early 50s, I believe, or middle 50s.
Okay, so
he recorded Plunking Rag and Riding the Waves.
And that drop D with that drop D tuning,
Yeah, and Pee Wee. I played a lot with Pee Wee.
Yeah.
And used to go to their house at Lily Mill, and we picked in the back bedroom, and me and Pee Wee and Hubert.
Yeah.
And Grandma would call dinner, and we'd go eat. And one time, Hubert laid his banjo, his double bed in there, just as far back next to the wall as he could lay it, you know.
Yeah.
Thought to myself, now he's got something in there he don't want nobody to see.
Right.
Found out he had cut a mirror, just a regular glass mirror, around, and installed it in the back of his resonator.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Obviously, he was a pretty innovative guy when it came to his banjo.
He was. He was. I heard him pick by the wood stove there at his mother's in early 50s.
He's doing three-finger roll then too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Good three-finger roll.
I mean, I knew he was, but I didn't know if he was doing it then too.
He was not far from starting when Earl did, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot about him, not to have got to talk to him in person, you know.
He played Jingle Bells one time, and that just set me on fire.
I bet it did.
On the banjo.
Was it hard for you to learn to do that, to play the three-finger roll?
No, not after I did the Flint Hill Special.
Right, after that.
It's one of the hardest you can play.
I agree that it is.
Of course, I learned note by note slowly, and then speeded it up.
Yeah.
And it began to, then I began to meet Earl, you know, and George Brooks. I'd go to his house every Saturday night. Wintertime, they had a big open fireplace and a semicircle line of musicians. They had the Padgett brothers, Clark and Howard. They played twin fiddles.
Yeah.
And we had a bass player and had a guitar player and two banjos, and we just had a big time back then.
Well, now, somewhere along the line, you picked up more than the banjo, right?
Well, I already was into the guitar and the banjo, and had I known the method for teaching the fiddle, I'd been teaching a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I've only been teaching it probably 20 years.
So that's a long time to be teaching it.
So did you start playing? Did you finally start playing around after playing with these guys? I mean, did you find a band to play with?
Around here?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't spend much time around here. I was
Right.
in Nashville while I was Wake Forest, away from
Right.
home. And then we lived in Greenville when I played with Charlie Moore.
Right.
And I spent a lot of time away from here. So,
Right. So not really much here.
And all the musicians I used down in South Carolina were from Spartanburg, Greenville,
Right.
Taylors, and
Right.
over in that area. We played at Happy Holler for 12 years.
Oh yeah.
We were at Jordan School Gymnasium at Landrum, South Carolina, and Barbara Fairchild had just put out that Teddy Bear.
Yeah.
We had her over one weekend, and we had a pretty good crowd over there. And this man at Happy Holler asked me to go to his place over there and play, and I told him we wasn't ready to have that many songs
Right.
together, and because it was 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
And so about a year later, he came back, and we went. He said, we got about 25 people on Friday and 30, 40 on Saturday is our average. And so we started playing, and we ended up organized 72, and we ended up with we averaged 1,400 people a week year round.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And I had 5 members, including my wife. And,
Right.
And we'd bring home like $1,000
Yeah.
cash. They paid us
Which
in
at
cash
that
money.
time, yeah, oh yeah, and that's big time.
And we walked in and with an instrument and hooked up and played, and then got our money and walked out. We went over to visit the Marshall Tucker Band and Moore. They bought the old schoolhouse for a studio, recording studio. And they were sitting around talking, and they had a bus and a tractor trailer truck, and he said, we out here on the road, said we having to pay these roadies and fuel, and sometimes motels and eating out and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
He said, y'all ones got it made. Said, you just go over and play, get your instrument and walk home.
I mean, really, that's the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably as good a job as you ever had.
Yeah, it was.
And then, how'd you get to Nashville?
Well, like I said, I left Wake Forest College.
Yeah.
I was going to become a medical doctor, and this music kept pulling at me. So I said, I'll go to Nashville and see what I can do. And I don't remember how I met the McCormick brothers, but anyway, they invited me on their radio show at Gallatin, Tennessee, and they had a live show every Saturday, and then they went out and played live shows after the radio program. And Earl Scruggs listened to that program, and he heard me on it one day and called the station, wanted to know where I was living at. Told him I was living over on Douglas Street, and he said, well, that's just a little ways from my house. Let me come by and pick you up Saturday morning, bring you over to the house. I'd known Earl since I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
And I knew Horace. Horace came to my dad's house when I was probably about 9, driving a 47 Ford Coupe. And he said, where was that little boy that plays the banjo? I want to pick a guitar with him. So
right.
I knew Horace his whole life, and was around him. We picked together. Matter of fact, I got accused of, I don't know if you know Buster Kendrick.
I do know Buster. I just did an
Buster
interview
played,
with Buster.
He played 7 years with Dottie West.
Yes.
He was going to Garden Webb at the same time. He said, you're the reason I didn't graduate Garden Webb. Said, we was off over there playing music with Horace over in the Quonset hut. Said, you're the reason I didn't graduate. I said, I didn't know that. I met some people. I was at Nashville at behind the stage at Grand Ole Opry, and we got word somebody's looking for a banjo player down at the theater.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't know where it's at. And the guy standing next to me said, I know where it's at. Said, we can walk to it. I said, come on. So I went down there and I got that job. And came to find out he was Mike Longworth.
Oh, yeah.
Martin Guitar Company.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And he lived in Chattanooga, and he would always sign his letters, "Keep on the sunny side, Mike."
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So we had several, of course, like George Brooks, you know, we got to play with the twin fiddles
Right.
and so forth every week. So a little bit of all of it added up, just a little.
Yeah. Yeah. So why'd you decide to leave Nashville?
Well, it was late 50s, and Elvis Presley was beginning to hit the music scene, and I kind of saw the handwriting on the wall. Flat Scruggs had a hard time there, having to play England, China,
Right.
all around. You know, it's kind of scarce going.
Time's changing.
So Earl offered me a job with William Lee and Stoney Cooper on the Grand Ole Opry.
Right.
And he told me to think. I said, let me think about it. So 2 or 3 weeks passed by, and he said, if you don't want a job on the Opry, said, he said his brother-in-law is manager of a big plant here in Nashville. Get you a working job, and you can live with me and Louise.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was too proud, to do that.
Yeah, I understand that.
So I told him, I said, I'm going back to North Carolina. Well, I got back. Charlie Moore found out I was back, and he asked me to join his television show. And he had a live 7 to 7:30, Monday through Friday. And then we had a production show on Wednesday night. We had a WIS television show in Columbia on Thursday nights. And we were playing show dates every night.
Right.
Had one of the first country music parks outside in the South, the Whispering Pines.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was open in about 52 or 3, I think.
How old would you have been during this time?
Well, I was 21,
21.
when I joined Charlie.
Okay.
And we played everything. Had an old Cadillac. And we played every building standing, I think, at that time between Spartanburg and Atlanta.
Yeah.
And then tours up north, all the way to Ohio and Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
We went up to Mockingbird Hill Country Music Park one Sunday afternoon and played, and Wayne Rainey was up there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we met him, and he wanted Charlie to go over to his recording studio after we left there, and we recorded till the sun came up that morning, and then drove back from Cincinnati to Clayton, Georgia.
Yeah. Oh, that's a long
I think it's
drive.
14 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
No interstates much,
Oh, yeah.
at that time. But I met a lot of people in Georgia and all across
Right.
the land.
So what brought you to teaching?
Well, the biggest thing was wife and I worked 8 hours a week at Happy Holler,
Yeah.
and we made enough money to live, but we were off Saturday midnight till the next Friday at 8 o'clock.
Right.
And we traveled and went everywhere we wanted to go.
Right.
And it just got boring, I needed something to do.
Mm-hmm.
So one day, Max Wilson
Yeah.
came up and knocked on my dad's door. He said, Dan, I've got a man here that wants to learn to play the banjo, Larry Lovelace.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so he was my first student. So
Oh,
I
okay.
started teaching. He'd come spend half a day sometimes.
Oh, okay.
He got to be real good.
Yeah, he did.
Building banjo necks, designing his own inlay. He had to be perfect.
And he turned out to be a pretty good banjo
Yeah,
player.
he's a pretty good banjo player. Sure was.
Yeah.
That's how I got started.
How
And
many
then,
students you reckon you had over the year?
I've had, well, of course, I just averaged it up 50 a week. I think it's about 4,500,
Wow.
somewhere along there over the years. I taught 5 days a week for 46 years in Shelby.
Mm.
And we've been here at Bowling Springs. It was 3 years in May, first week in May.
Wow. Most of your students been banjo players?
No, they haven't. Had a lot of guitar players and a whole lot of banjo players and good many fiddle players and a couple of auto harp players
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
angel harp and dulcimer and bass,
Oh,
both
yeah,
upright and
yeah,
electric,
yeah.
and both upright, and guitar, both electric and acoustic, mandolin. But I guess I've had more guitar and banjo than anything.
Well, I certainly, over the years that I've been here, have played with a lot of people who told me, oh yeah, I was teaching myself, and I think I had to get me some help to take it someplace else. And, you know, Dan Padgett, that's who helped me out. That's who got me from playing G, C, and D to playing something more, you know. And banjo players in particular said, you know, I took it as far as I could go, and then he's the one that made the difference for me.
Well, I've written about 1,000 banjo tabs.
Well, yeah,
out.
that's a lot.
And then probably, I don't know, I got about 4 or 5 books with fiddle, and I got guitar, and I got, but it's mostly banjo and guitar.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly a lot of players of a lot of different ages that are playing music here, and pretty much learned it from you, which is that's a treasure in itself, to have somebody that can play well and have had the experience of playing around in the world to guide them in the right direction. And that's a gift too. Teaching in itself is a gift. That's a really hard thing to do. What's your favorite memories of all the time you've been playing?
Well, I've met a lot of people that I wouldn't have met otherwise. One summer, you might remember Joe Namath on the New York. His partner, Darrell Austin, played on the team. Darrell took banjo lessons one summer at my studio at 6 Points. He was going to Garden Web Summer School.
Oh,
And Lee Greenway and his makeup artist, Andy Griffith,
wow.
moved back here from Hollywood after 50 years. He was Princess Grace's makeup artist. He was did everything Andy did to Matlock, and he was one of I can't think of the person right now, but he was the top makeup artist in Hollywood.
Right.
He was one of Clark Gable,
Wow.
and he and Andy left the skeet shoot, and Lee had the 2 world trophies.
Right.
Good with shotgun. Lee called me one day and he said, I'm going to put on a knife and gun show at the National Guard Armory in Spindale. Can you get a bluegrass band and come play for 2 days? And I said, yes, sir, I will. He said, I'm going to bring my gun collection out of Hollywood. And what a collection he had.
Oh,
He had it over and under shotgun belonged to Clark Gable.
Oh man.
He had the last little Browning pistol, the serial number it was made.
Wow.
Lee left here with his 2 brothers about 1921, went west. And he came back here with $60 million. And he wanted me to come to his house and teach him banjo every week. He bought the Dr. Tanner place in Rutherford behind the hospital. And he loved cars. He had 2 Rolls Royces. He had a new one and I think a 69 like Elvis had.
Right.
Had a new Ferrari 12-cylinder mid-engine every year. And he won the race at Charlotte when he was 75 years old.
Wow.
So he had, his brother had a little Martin ukulele that had a little hole in it. And he had 2 banjos. He'd paid $3,000 for gold plating on his Vega in 1960. And he had a Gibson. And we took his instruments to Charlotte to have them repaired. A guy that I knew, master banjo builder, C.E. Ward. So not knowing that Lee was a race car driver, we got in the car and started out around the winding curve.
like to inject this into the story. Now, after Dan and I had finished the interview, Dan brought me a red bow tie with diamond studs on it. And he asked me, did I know what it was? And of course I said no. It was the original bow tie that Earl Scruggs had worn on when he filmed the Beverly Hillbilly episodes. They'd given him 2 of these bow ties, and because they tape these in like a 14-hour day, and Dan had the original one that belonged to Earl Scruggs. It still had the makeup on it. It was one of the absolute coolest things that I have touched doing these interviews. I could just feel the magic in it. You'll see a picture of it on the Facebook part of the lead-in, the promotion of this podcast with Dan. But an incredible story. He got them from Louise Scruggs, and I actually got to hold them. Wonderful, wonderful part of the story that is not in the podcast itself. So look at the pictures and realize that is the story.
And drove him all the way back to Thunder Road, and he woke up just before we got to his house. And, but I was there every week, and he invited us to. He said, Andy's coming next spring, and said, when I finish redoing my house, and you're invited, I want you to bring about a 6-piece bluegrass band. You're invited for supper at 6 o'clock, and Andy's going to have some friends here, and I'm going to have some friends over, and we're going to have Chinese food. So I pulled up in the car. I had a Cadillac and a trailer at that time, and the driveway was lined on both sides with cars, and they told us not to tell anybody.
Right.
Said we don't want. I thought to myself, well, somebody found
Somebody
out.
done said, yeah. Somebody.
He didn't want any media of any kind in there, and we promised. So we got out and went in. Andy was in there. They greeted us, and we ate supper. And after supper, we just went in his living room there, and everybody got their instruments. Frank Greenway's his cousin on the fiddle, and me and Lee was on the banjo, and Andy played my guitar.
Oh, yeah.
And Ruth played the bass, Ann Condy played the guitar. She was a good singer. And we just started picking. We picked about 2 hours and a half.
I bet that was good.
Yeah, we enjoyed it, but Lee was good to me.
So I have to play them Dillard tunes.
Yeah, I got to meet Doug. I'd never met him. We'd played all around him, never met him.
Right.
We'd be like at Richmond, and he'd be maybe 10 miles down the road.
Right.
But anyway, Mr. Greenway asked me one day, said, have you ever met Doug Dillard? And I said, no, sir. I said, I've been all around, never. He said, well, I'm going to introduce you to him. Said, if you go with me Sunday down to the Bluegrass show, said at Shelby at the livestock yard, they've got Bill Monroe, and they've got William Lynn Stoney Cooper, they got the Dillards and the Osborne brothers.
Right.
And went down there, and he introduced me, and we talked for probably 45 minutes. We were about the same age.
Oh, yeah. Probably
And I was about the same age as Bobby Thompson, about the same age as Haskell McCormick,
Yeah.
and you know, we were close together.
Well, now, did you play with Doc Watson?
First show I played with Doc was at Malcolm Brown Auditorium, Shelby, in 1982, I believe it was, somewhere around. Then I played 2 or 3 shows at Dover Theater and Gardner Webb with him.
That's pretty good.
And the last time I saw him, we went to the Leaf Festival in Black Mountain, and we had to go to the Owens High School and catch a shuttle bus to get out there. Mm-hmm. They dropped us off at the foot of the mountain, and you had to walk up this little gravel pathways up the mountain to had a big tent, huge tent.
Right.
And they had there's a lake up there as well as I remember, and
Yeah, there is.
just people everywhere. They were camping in blankets on the ground, campers, trailers, everything you can think of. And so we got good seats. We were about the third row back from the front. And the wife had always wanted to meet, she told her mama one day, she said, I'll meet that man someday. And we were walking up that path, and she was ahead of me a little bit, and I looked over and I saw Doc Watson and Richard sitting right there on the path in an SUV.
Yeah.
I said, hey. He said, what do you want? I said, come here. I said, right here sits Doc and Richard right here. So I went over and she got to shake Doc's hand, and I don't know why we didn't make any pictures.
Right. Oh, yeah, I do that.
We went on to the show, and it was just, they were standing 4 or 5 thick all the way around the tent.
Yeah.
And the seats were full. And David Holt was with Doc. They had just come from California. He hadn't even been home. And when they came out on stage, all these people from the side moved in front of us.
Oh.
But we never did get to see him.
Oh, that's terrible.
They were standing probably 10 feet thick in front of the audience.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And then after the show, you couldn't get within a mile of him.
Sure
You had him under security, roped off, and you couldn't even get, to him. So, but he was a wonderful man. The last chance I had to play with him, Doc played at Lattimore Baptist Church one Sunday, 11 o'clock worship, and I was up at Seven Devils spending the night in September. It snowed that night, and we were booked over to the Alta Pass Apple Orchard on Sunday evening, and Harold Blanton called me, and he said, hey, he said, Doc's gonna be over at my house about 2 o'clock. We're gonna jam if you can make it. And I said, Harold, we're up here on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and we're supposed to play at Alta Pass this afternoon, and it'll be about 9 o'clock or 10 tonight before I get in. And I wish I could, but I can't.
Mm.
So I didn't get to play with him the last time he was in. But he's a wonderful man.
Yeah.
He invited us up to the Merrill Fest to sit with the Watson family, and went up and sat there with Richard and Doc. Well, Doc mostly all afternoon.
Oh, that's
He
great.
talked and told me stories, and he said, I pay the big acts like Earl Scruggs and Dolly Parton, Loretta Lynn, and $50,000 a show. And I told Doc, I said, I'm gonna step out here on the little back porch. It's all off limits, and catch a breath of air. And I stepped out there, and this black SUV drove up. Windows blacked out. You couldn't see what he was. He was probably 25 yards. Door opened, Earl Scruggs got out.
Huh.
He said, Dan Padgett, said, where you been? I hadn't seen you in 100 years. And they had a driver with them. Louise was in the back.
Right.
And we talked about 5 minutes. It's the last time I ever saw Earl.
Really?
Yeah.
Of all you played with a lot of people. Who's been your favorite musical partner that you played with?
That's a tough one.
Because you played with a lot of good people. I mean,
I really don't know. Well, the two of my favorites were the Foggy Mountain Boys and the Bluegrass Boys.
oh yeah, I'm sure.
I guess would be the McCormick brothers.
Yeah.
But they were all good.
Just about everybody you played with was good. I mean, they're all, you get to where you are because you're good,
Well, sometimes you get a break.
Sometimes you do get a
Yeah.
break, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of luck involved. It is a lot of
There
luck
is.
involved. Well, I do appreciate you taking the time to do this. It's a very interesting part of the music business, and I'm just grateful you gave me the time of day.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it, man.
All right.
I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.